It's 2024 and I'm saying Happy New Year. And I'm just so excited. I'm sure you're excited too. You've come from church with your New Year resolution, your list of it's a year of upcrease, increase, downcrease, everything that they've promised us, abundance, everything, just like they did last year in 2023. And you ended the year on a low note. You know why? Because you didn't do anything about it and you started 2024 just the same way. And if you continue what you did in 2023 at the end of 2024, nothing would have happened. And you know why again? Because you have done nothing about it. Hi there. My name is Adiola Kingsley James, and I call myself a life giver and a kingmaker. As a life giver, I help people craft the life of their dreams and then teach them how to live it unapologetically and boldly. And as a kingmaker, I've worked in the television industry for over 20 years. I call it 2 decades. And I have made a lot of kings and queens, and I plan to make a lot more. Maybe you'll be one of them. Now, I wish that my life has always been this beautiful, but the truth is, it hasn't. And so let me share a story with you. It was just in February 2020, just around the corner, when I was almost 40 and I had nothing to show for it. I was lying down in my bed crying my eyes out because I'd just been fired from a job that I held so dearly onto. Now, this job for me, I don't know if it happens to you or it has ever happened to you before. But you know, when you have just one thing you hold on to, for some people it's their marriage, for some people it's their children, for some people like me it was a job. And then all of a sudden that thing is taken away from you. Yeah, that's what happened to me. Now, unfortunately for me, I hadn't groomed or grown a relationship with my husband. Neither had I grown a relationship with my children. And I had 2 stepkids at the time and my own biological child. And I remember one day walking into the house and she looked at me and she said, "Are you mommy or are you auntie?" And that day I decided, oh my goodness, okay, so I've got to do something different. So this is me already feeling like a failure in every other area of my life. And now the only thing that made me feel worthy of leaving was taken away from me. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but it happened to me. And I felt like an absolute failure. I was so depressed. I would run away from everybody and hide myself in my room and cry for hours. So this particular night, my daughter, I could hear her opening doors. I realized that she was looking for me because, like I said, I used to run away from everybody in the house. So that night she came into my room and she lay down on my bed and saw me and said, "Mommy, are you happy or are you sad?" I quickly smiled. I said, "I'm happy." And she said, "Then why are you crying?" I said, "Because I'm happy to see you." Now, we both knew that I was lying. And so after a moment of silence, she hugged me and said, "Mommy, I want you to know that I love you." That was music to my ears, to be honest, because I don't know if this happens to you when you feel everything is gone, and then one glimmer of hope shows up. And that glimmer of hope was my daughter. And I became so grateful that she came into my room that night, because that sparked off a lot of the change that now began to happen. Because when I looked into her eyes, I saw hopelessness and helplessness. And she looked to me for support. Me that is blind. How can I lead her? And so that night, hugging her and crying myself to sleep, I made a decision. And I said, I will change my life around no matter what. The following morning, I was excited, thinking, yes, I have a plan. Let me speak to my husband about it and say, you know what, I think we need to do this and we need to do that. And when I said to him, I think we need some counseling, he said, there's nothing wrong with me. I said, well, there's something wrong with me. And so since there's nothing wrong with you, I know there's something wrong with me. I will seek help. Now, let me use the opportunity to say this. Seeking help is one of the best things that can ever happen to you. For me, therapy was how I sought help, because I couldn't explain how my life was and why I was showing up the way I was showing up. Therapy was what gave me that glimmer of hope. Now, it started off as thinking, okay, maybe I should go for therapy. Maybe I needed a coach. Because at every point in life, every human being needs support. Every human being. We were created for connections, whether we like it or not. So I know we're in this era where everybody's saying, I'm doing me. I love myself. This is for me, by me, to me, on me, in me. I understand that. But the truth is that you cannot do anything and everything alone. So we need help. So let me continue the story. So I'm sitting down, I'm thinking, okay, now that I know I need help, where do I get it? And that was another stumbling block. And I know that we find ourselves in that place a lot where, okay, you know what you want to do, but you don't know how. And once you hit that how brick wall, you stop and you go back. Well, my how wasn't going to stop me, because regardless of what it was, I was going to find help. And you know that saying when they say when the student is ready, the teacher arrives? That's exactly what happened to me. So I was lying down on my bed and I was scrolling on Instagram, and this woman showed up on my feed. And it was a woman called Lisa Nichols, an American lady. And she was being interviewed by somebody called Tom Bellew. And I was listening to the conversation and it so resonated with me. She was sharing how she went from a broken state to how she had become the person who was inspiring hundreds of thousands of women. And I knew that I was going to be one of those hundreds of thousands of women. And so I didn't stop at just listening to that conversation. I went ahead and I sought her out. I went to her YouTube page to look for her. I subscribed to her channel. I went to her website and I was looking for anything she had to sell because I was ready to buy it. Remember, I said that I'd gotten to a stage where I said, no matter what, I will change and my life will change. Not really. At that point, it wasn't even for me. It was more for my daughter than for me. And so I sought her out and I saw that she had a conference that she was putting up. And then it was during this COVID period, so everything was online. So I was so excited about it. So I registered for the conference. It was a 3-day conference. I put everybody on notice at home, told them, look, I'm not going to be available to you. I have this course that I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. And, I was really, really, really looking forward to it. And so I did the course. Now, on the second day, they asked us to write questions. And I sent in a question. I was like, well, if they don't pick it, no problem. I will send a question anyways. And for those of you who attend conferences or attend courses and they ask you to throw in questions, I dare say that you should. You must participate because you never know what day your question will be answered. Well, this day, my question was answered. And I was talking about self-sabotage and I was talking about self-destruct, right? And so I sent her the question and she picked up my question. I remember so well, it was at 2 a.m. in the morning. I was already dozing off and I heard somebody shouting my name, Adiola, is she there? Adiola. And I thought that sounds like my name. And so I jumped up. I thought it was a dream at first, but I realized it was me and I unmuted myself and I said, yes, I'm here. And she said, I've read your question, baby. And I want to ask you a question. Would you do everything I ask you to do? I said to her, I will do it and then some. And she said to me, if you do everything I ask you to do, in 1 year from now, you will use binoculars and you'll be looking at how your life has changed. Guess what, guys? If I wasn't serious about my life, that would have just been a dream of looking back. Because if I didn't do anything about it, I would have stayed stuck in that place. That decision I made that night was what started to guide me in all the other things that I now had to do. So now it was time for us to pay for the course that she had done this conference for. And I realized it was $2,500. I'm like, what? I don't have a job. Nobody is sponsoring me. Who am I going to go and meet to say, I want to do this course in personal development, and they will pay for me $2,500? And I know that a lot of us find ourselves in this place. Nobody puts money aside for therapy or coaching. We put money aside for other things, for the rainy day, we call it, hospital or, or travel. But nobody puts money aside for personal development. And the truth is, without personal development, you will never grow. And so that night, I said to myself, if I have to borrow, I'll borrow. If I have to beg, I will beg. If I have to sell something, I will sell something. Because we're so used to investing on ourselves, the makeup, the hair, the clothes, but we're not used to investing in ourselves. This one was going to change for me. And so I called them and I begged them to give me a payment plan, and they agreed. And I told them, on every day, on this day, on every month, on this day, I will make this payment. And I promise you, I didn't default on any of my payments. I paid for the entire course. Now, whilst I was doing that course, my goodness, I had to pause a little bit and breathe. I learned so much on that course. It was on that course I realized that some things had happened in my life, in my nature and my nurture and my environment and my growing up years, that had formed the woman that I had become. And so the first thing I knew I had to do was go for therapy. Now, where do I go for therapy once again? We always hit this crossroads when we decide we want to do something. We want to take action on something, blah, blah, blah. And then you're thinking, where do I go to? Now, let me put that aside. Let me tell you some other things that I learned. I learned that I had no identity. And I was answering to anything anybody called me. So if they say you're a useless mother, I'll say you're right. If they say you're a good mother, I will say you're right. If they say you're a bad mother, I will say you're right. My self-esteem was so low. I had no boundaries. I didn't know how to say no. I was showing up in such a way that was so disempowering for me. And I realized that I had to go to the past, because the person that I had become came from somewhere, right? And so wherever you find yourself today, if you have results that you do not like, I promise you it's come from somewhere. It has. And for you to be able to deal with where you are today, they connect the dots going backwards. You don't connect the dots going forwards. You do it backwards. And connecting the dots going backwards is you looking into your past, your childhood, your upbringing, your nature, your nurture. Look at how you were groomed and how you were grown, right? What do you think about yourself? Now, I was a people pleaser as well, because I wanted people to like me. Why? I didn't feel loved as a child.